interact and reflect on why we're here. We're going to shift gears now, and we're going to talk about the work that we've got planned and the hopefulness that we're trying to create in this time when things feel frustrating and things feel difficult. So I'm going to share my screen right now, and bear with me as I do that, please. I'm going to start out with a video. Can I get a thumbs up for people who see this checkerboard looking thing? Yeah, thank you. Oh, you know what? I need to share my sound too. So I'm going to go back to that. Bear with me, please. Thank you. So we've got a plan to bring Final Five and ranked choice voting to Wisconsin. We've got a great team who's done a lot of thinking about this. But before we get into that, I just want to make sure everybody's on the same page and take 2 minutes and 10 seconds to watch a quick video that gives a really, really good, simple explanation about how this works. And there's a lot more to this that we can talk about later. If you want to get involved with our campaign, there's ways to learn more about how this works. But for right now, I think this is a really good starting point. So we'll watch this together, and then we'll dive into what our plans are.
Washington is broken. Over the years.
Can you hear that?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
Washington is broken. Over the years, it's the only political statement Americans agree on. Worse yet, we've come to accept it as fact. Newsflash, Washington is not broken. It's doing what it's designed to do. It's polarized. It's gridlocked. It's lost. The solution to revitalizing our democracy by reinstating healthy competition and ensuring accountability of elected officials lies in a combination of top 5 primaries and ranked choice voting. This system of top 5 primaries and ranked choice voting yields several benefits. For starters, it reduces partisanship. Candidates must appeal to the majority of voters in order to be elected. Ranking candidates in order of preference gives people the opportunity to vote for their favorite candidate without fear of helping their least favorite candidate get elected or feeling pressured to vote for the lesser of 2 evils. It's been shown to reward candidates who run more positive campaigns rather than ones who malign other candidates, because it's important to be people's second, third, and fourth choices too. Here's how it works. With top 5 primaries, all candidates are listed on the same primary ballot. The top 5 vote getters, regardless of their partisan affiliations, advance to the general election. The general election is where ranked choice voting comes into play. The 5 candidates who won the primary election are listed on a general election ballot. Voters can then rank each of those 5 candidates in order of preference. The candidate who achieves the majority of votes, over 50%, is the winner. Unlike our current system where candidates can win the election without having the majority of the votes, if no one gets a majority, the candidate with the fewest votes is eliminated. Voters who selected that candidate as their first choice now have their second choice counted. This process of elimination and counting the next best candidate continues until one person achieves more than 50% of the total votes, resulting in the candidate with the broadest appeal winning the election. With top 5 primaries and ranked choice voting, every vote counts and every voice is heard.
Awesome. So that's a really quick overview of what we're working towards. If you have questions about the benefits of ranked choice voting, the mechanics of ranked choice voting, we had 2 great speakers on last month, and we can send you a recording of that conversation where they really dive in more. And there's going to be a lot more opportunities to learn about it. But what we're going to focus on tonight is our campaign plan for making this happen and building enough power to get this passed in the Wisconsin legislature. So I'm going to share my screen again, and we're going to give you an overview of the plan. Yeah. Bear with me, technology. So those of you who've heard me speak before, you're probably sick of me posing this question constantly. but it's a question that's really central to the work we do, because the question is, how do we get enough power to create the change that we need? And the reason why I always bring this question up is because it should be a North Star for us, because we can have the greatest list of policy proposals. We can be really knowledgeable about those policy proposals. We can be experts in ranked choice voting or gerrymandering or voting rights. But if we don't have power in the form of people, we're not going to be able to enact those changes, because people can either just ignore us or overpower us when it comes time to try to pass something that we need as a society. So I want to say that because this campaign was really designed with this question in mind. And now I want to hand it over to Bob Moline, who's going to share about our leadership team.
Thank you, Bill. Many of you know me from our work on WWNVD. For those of you that don't, I'm Bob Moline. I live in Hudson. And about 2 years ago, I responded to an op-ed that Maureen Ash had written into the Hudson Star Observer and started working with Pierce County Grow, WWNVD. Well, as that Fair Maps work wound up, PC Grow wanted to kick off a new campaign to strengthen democracy. So a group of volunteers and staffers met several times to help shape this effort. You know, these were all people that had experience with the Fair Maps effort and were willing to devote some time to it. You'll recognize many of the names that were involved. So Bill Hogseth, who's new to our organization, but very experienced in this area. Janelle, Maureen Ash, Ann Leek and Grace Caggio, Anne Marie McClellan. We recently added Danny Atkinson. You met him a moment ago. And for a short while, we had Allison Page on there before she had to withdraw, because apparently you can't lead a nonpartisan civic organization while winning a seat in the assembly. Go Allison. Bill led us through a structured process to clarify our organization goals, our strategies and tactics. And this was over the course of maybe 3 or 4 meetings, one of which was an all-day meeting. Our goal is to build relationships, promote civic engagement, and organize residents to demand that legislators pass Final Five and ranked choice voting in the Wisconsin legislature in 2023 in order to reduce extreme partisanship and divisiveness in politics. Some of you may wonder, when I talk about reducing extreme partisanship and divisiveness, is it possible this is going to be one of those cases where one party takes the high road, unilaterally disarming, while the other party runs roughshod over the process? It is not. That's the beauty of working with structural change. When we're successful with this, it changes the incentives and structures of getting elected and governing. It doesn't force people to compromise and cooperate, but it does remove major penalties for cooperating and compromising that exist today. It doesn't force politicians to give up the nasty, scorched earth tactics they use, but it does force them to court voters beyond their base, or at least refrain from insulting them, because they might need to be their second or third choice. And if they don't, there's a tremendously greater risk of them losing than what they've faced in the past. Finally, while many of our PC Grow projects are focused on Pierce County, our democracy project, which is called Bridge the Divide, like WWNVD before it, has a scope that will ultimately reach all of Western Wisconsin, including Pierce, St. Croix, Polk, Buffalo, Pepin, Dunn, and Barron counties. And like WWNVD, we'll work with coalition partners in ways that work for us, for those partners, and ultimately for Wisconsin. And I'll talk about one of those coalition partners in another segment where I talk about some of the tactics we'll use. Bill, back to you.
Cool, thanks, Bob. So our campaign, the way we are structuring time is we have a campaign plan that starts now in June of 2022 and leads us until winter of 2023. And we have a set of tactics or actions that we hope will get us closer to our goal, which is to pass Final Five and ranked choice voting in Wisconsin. But we've sequenced those tactics in a way that we hope will be engaging more and more people over time, so that by the time we get to the point in winter 2023, when we want to put the pressure on our legislators to vote yes for ranked choice voting, we have engaged so many people that we're able to provide a sufficient amount of pressure to our legislators. And I'm just going to give you a quick overview, and we'll dive into each of what these tactics are. But we're gonna kick off our campaign with a fun event where people are gonna have an opportunity to rank choice vote their favorite snack in parks in River Falls and Menominee. And I'll let Grace talk about that more later. But that event is hopefully going to draw in new people and allow us to start holding house parties, private events in people's homes or their backyards, where we provide them with a speaker where we share about ranked choice voting. And Bob's going to talk more about that. And we're also going to, because it's election season, we're going to engage candidates who are running for office. We're going to attend their events, and we're going to ask them questions about ranked choice voting to see where they're at and to make sure that people are hearing about it. Danny's going to talk more about that. We're also going to bring ranked choice voting activities to community events like county fairs and like those little municipal town days that so many towns across the area have. And Danny's going to talk about that as well. And we hope that this all builds to a climax where we are going to have a lobby day. We're going to have people writing letters. We're going to have people calling their legislators to show them that there's an overwhelming amount of support amongst their constituents, that this needs to pass and they need to vote yes for Final Five and ranked choice voting in Wisconsin. That's the arc of our campaign. We're going to zoom into these, and Bob's going to talk about house parties.
Thanks again, Bill. So before I dig into a house party, I want to talk about one of our coalition partners. As the Fair Maps activity was winding down, and before I knew exactly what we were going to be doing here, I got some information from a group called Voters First Wisconsin. I reached out to them, and I liked their main tactic of having house parties in order to propagate this message. So I worked with them. I had a house party in my neighborhood, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a moment. In addition to being able to build on their knowledge, but tailor it for ourselves regarding these house parties, working with Voters First provides an answer to a question that plagues many of us. Can this really work? One of the things that's great about them is they are a more conservative organization than we are. And they have an alliance with a group called Veterans for Progressive Innovation, for Political Innovation. So they are a more conservative group. They want this change. Their conservatism manifests as their love for their country means they want to make these changes. So it's a more progressive conservatism than you sometimes see in the news. Partnering with them, we can have the ear of more conservative lawmakers than we sometimes could in the past. So I had this neighborhood house party, and I live in a pretty conservative neighborhood. I went around door to door, invited people, told them what was going on. And I had 13 people in my house. We talked about what we didn't like about politics. And there was no name calling, there was no hatred, which you see on the news. These were my neighbors, but there wasn't even defensiveness. That was astounding to me. And with this group of mainly conservative people, there was not even veiled insults to liberals or progressives. It was exactly what you would want for a conversation to occur. Since then, last night, as a matter of fact, I had much of the leadership team for this project over to my house for my second Final Five voting house party. Again, we walked through the process. We demonstrated. Last night, we ranked wines and beers. My neighborhood party, we ranked pizzas. So we educate and we make people comfortable with it. And then the reasons for these house parties. Bill has educated me that studies have shown that trust is the only way to change someone's mind. Data and persuasive arguments just don't do it. And I can personally attest to that. I've lost so many arguments, been outvoted after making what I thought were highly persuasive arguments. I have bought into the fact that trust, not being the better debater, is the only way. So a house party doesn't have the same effect as a 30-minute one-on-one conversation where you can dive into deep detail with one other person. But there's a real effect of, if you break bread together, you build trust together. And I think that's true. When you sit down and have a meal with someone and with pleasant conversation, and then you turn the topics to more important things, that is your best chance of building allies. Finally, wrapping up the output of this, what do we want from a house party? Well, we want volunteers and supporters. We want volunteers that will take part in our lobbying efforts with legislators. That is, at key moments in the next session, we want them to make calls to legislators. And again, for those of you remembering some of our difficulties with contacting legislators in our previous project, if the more conservatives we have allied with us, the more likely our legislators will listen to us. Second, we want volunteers that will host a house party for their circle of friends with the assistance of speakers that we will provide. I know this is going to shock most of you, but I have a limited circle of friends. There's only so many people I can pull in, but you have friends. And I am looking forward to, as well as other speakers, looking forward to meeting in your house with your friends in a non-threatening way and building that trust. There will be some volunteers that enjoy that so much after hosting a house party, they will want to become speakers, but you don't even have to worry about that at this point. And there will be other needs where we want additional supporters, maybe to move away from the house party role, but the house party is their first entry into working with us, Bridge the Divide. There are a variety of ways that volunteers will be able to support this effort, but for many situations, that house party is the first chance we get to sit down and talk with them in detail and build that trust. That's it for the house party tactic for now. There's much more, but I'm going to turn it back to Bill.
Thanks, Bob. And the beauty of the house party is that by friends inviting friends, these are people who we would never have the chance to talk to otherwise. These are brand new people who have the potential to hear our message. So thank you, Bob. And I'm going to hand it over to Danny, who's going to share about how we plan to engage candidates and hold ranked choice voting activities at community events.
Yeah, so house parties are a great way to get people involved in this. And another great way to get people involved is community events, especially in the summer and the fall. So one such community event that we're going to be participating in is River Falls Days. And from there, we're going to basically be trying to get a booth at every county fair, city fair we can get ourselves at. And at those places, we're going to be trying to have similar ranked choice voting activities that we've had at these house parties. So having people rank snacks or rank beverages, just to get people accustomed to how ranked choice voting works and show people that it's really not as complicated as it might seem at first. And we're hoping that through those events, we can get people involved in this campaign, and we can get people who want to contact their legislators and engage them directly. And then when the time comes in late this year and early next year, we would like to have volunteers and team members call the legislators in their assembly districts, whether it be their assemblymen or senators, to try to get them to take a stance on ranked choice voting, especially as we get into next year. It will be back up in the state legislature. And We're hoping that it will have bipartisan support just as it had this last year, especially since there was very little public lobbying last year, whereas this year we're going to be applying extra pressure. And hopefully then we can get some significant support in the legislature for it. So yeah, calling representatives, and we also hope to plant people at town halls and whatnot in order to ask them directly what their stance is on ranked choice voting, and try to get them to at least be open to it, since it is something that that has bipartisan support, and has had bipartisan support last year. So we want to try our best to get this underway. So yeah, I'll hand it back to Bill.
Thanks, Danny. And then the climax of this is that come 2023, when a new legislature is in session in Wisconsin in the Assembly and Senate, and they start taking up debate around bills and committees start meeting, we have amassed enough of a critical mass of human beings who are now familiar with ranked choice voting, understand it, believe in it, and think it's an important thing for Wisconsin to take a step on, that we can flip a switch and mobilize people to get on the phones, to write letters, to travel with us to Madison and sit in the office of their legislator and make a compelling case face-to-face with their assembly person or their senator about why ranked choice voting is needed in Wisconsin. And we hope that we can amass enough people that it's going to be really clear that if they don't vote yes on ranked choice voting, they're going to pay for it. And that there's enough constituent support that they have no other choice. So this is our theory of change, that we can, that by using enough tactics to engage more and more people, to educate more and more people, to bring them in and involve them, that when the time to strike the iron, when it's hot, we will be able to strike in the winter of 2023. Grace is going to tell you about our kickoff event, but before we do that, I just want to say that what will power this campaign over time is our teams. And right now we have a leadership team, and this team has invested a lot of thinking into how this can happen. But what we need now are teams for each of our tactics. So a team to run the house parties, a team to engage candidates, a team to bring ranked choice voting activities to community events. All those teams, a communications team, an outreach team, you see them listed here. And this is what we're asking you to consider tonight. Would you be willing to be on one of these tactics teams and focus really specifically on one of these things that's going to engage people around ranked choice voting and help us build this power that we need? Each of these teams will have a lead, and that lead person will interact with the leadership team. So these teams will be getting support from the leadership team, from organizers at PC Grow, and hopefully this will be a well-oiled machine, and it'll be really fun as well. To be getting out there, to go to county fairs, to have house parties, to be ranking pizza, and doing the work to build the power that we need. So I wanted to show you this slide, that this is kind of our organizational chart for this campaign. So people have clear roles, clear responsibilities, and that we're all marching in the same direction. So that's our plan, but we've got to light a match and make it start with a bang. And that's what our kickoff event is. And that's coming up in June. And I'm going to let Grace explain that.
Yeah, I have the pleasure of talking about our lighting of the match, the campaign kickoff. Rank the Vote, as you can see here, they're back to back. We have one Wednesday night, 6 to 7 p.m., Glen Park Pavilion in River Falls. And then the next night, same time, in the Farmers Market Pavilion in Menominee. And to give you a background on who's going to be there, we have PC Grow's Executive Director, Janelle Ludwig-Krause, will be one of our speakers. We have our local election reform advocate, Bob Moline, and a noted guest speaker, Joshua Wilson. He's the Wisconsin state leader with Veterans for Political Innovation, which is a nonprofit group advocating for a less toxic and more competitive political system through election innovations. And this is a more conservative leaning group. So if you have friends, people who, maybe you don't see eye to eye on a whole lot of things politically, but like you, they're very concerned about the state of things right now and the extremism and so on. They might really appreciate coming to this and hearing what these different speakers have to say about it, and hearing from this Veterans for Political Innovation Change. They are behind ranked choice voting in Wisconsin. They're working for that as well here under Joshua Wilson. So in addition to the speakers, we're going to have a fun practice rank voting event. When you register for this, you will be given a list of snacks: the salty party, the sweet party, the healthy carrot party, fruit party, whatever. Just kind of having fun with the idea of different snacks representing different parties. And we'll do a primary vote. And from that primary vote, the top 5 candidates, the top 5 snacks will be put on a ballot. And when we all come to this face-to-face event at the parks, we will then have the ballot, we'll have the snacks out, kind of an example of what it's like to have these ranked choice voting parties with, different consumables as part of them. And we'll vote and see which snack, wins the day using ranked choice voting to help people to feel comfortable with that. We'll also have, we said, you got to have some beverages to, swish down those snacks. We'll have that. We're asking you to consider coming to this. We'd love to have you there. Even if you're still just trying to feel this out and you're not sure, we'd like to build some momentum. We'd love for you to bring 5 people or more that again, across the spectrum, bring them. This is bipartisan, this technique or this campaign. And spread the word on Facebook if you see information floating across there, any kind of social media that you're using. We really would like to get a lot of community support for these things. So encouraging you to participate.
Awesome. Thank you, Grace. One thing I would also add is that if you're moved by this and you want to help us at the kickoff event, we need people to help us set up, and we need people to help us run the election. So like if you're like a poll worker for real, we want you to help help people understand the ballot. Like, how do I rank pretzels versus Reese's Pieces, that type of thing. So if you'd like to volunteer, we would love to have you, because we need more people to make this happen, because we're just a small team right now. So I want to just thank Grace, Bob, and Danny for sharing. Can everybody give them a round of applause, and the whole leadership team for all the work and thinking about how this campaign can really be effective and structure it well. Really, really, really appreciate all the energy and intelligence and creativity that's gone into this. It is 8 o'clock, and I'd love to get you all out of here by 8:15, because that's what we said we would do. So we've got 15 minutes left, and want to have some time for questions. If you've got questions, which I'm sure you do. So let's just open up the floor. And if you want to come off of mute and share a question, that's great. If you also want to type into the chat and share a question that way, you're welcome to. So the time is yours now. So if you've got questions, please let us know.
I have a question, Bill. Within the current, well, let's call it the current legislature within the state, and maybe within some of the candidates, but let's say the current legislature, what kind of a feeling are you getting on support from the conservatives versus the progressives in the legislature?
Thanks for that question. So Senate Bill 250 and Assembly Bill 244 have currently been proposed, and they've received time in committee. They've received discussion in committee, which in this legislature is actually kind of a rare thing. So it's it's kind of a good sign. And both of those bills have bipartisan support. So the Senate bill, Senator Jeff Smith is the Democratic sponsor of that. And then Senator Dale Kooyenga is the Republican sponsor of the Senate bill for Final 5 and ranked choice voting. And then I'm pretty sure the Assembly bill is also a bipartisan supported sponsored bill. Bob or Danny, maybe, or Grace, do you know the
Between-
senators?
Between the two bills, both in the Senate and the Assembly, there are 7 Republican co-sponsors and 15 Democratic co-sponsors. That to me was astounding. 7 Republican and 15 Democratic co-sponsors. To me, that is very strong bipartisan support. It's not over the line. It's not a done deal, but that's a really good start.
And just also to add, just regarding the feasibility and the realism of passing this, is that other states have done this. States like Alaska, which are very conservative, passed ranked choice voting. And I think Lisa Murkowski is a really good example of someone who's a lawmaker who's able to vote in certain ways because they know that their primary is a Final Five primary, and they're not going to be punished by an extreme wing of their party for certain ways they vote. So it's happened in other states is just another thing I would add that I think is a source of hopefulness around this. So great question. Other questions from anybody else?
Bill, I have one, and Grace probably going to see this coming, but I think that probably a good 50% of the population of the state could not even name their legislator. I can't quite wrap my head around how you think that giving people 15 dessert choices compares to giving them 15 candidates when they aren't going to know 15 candidates. They aren't going to know 5 candidates either. I don't understand. An awful lot of people go and vote for a name, knowing absolutely nothing about that name. So how is this better? And but basically, how do you think that presenting them with dessert choices, which they already know, compares to asking them to rank candidates who they don't know?
Sure. Yeah. I'll ask Bob or others to chime in too, but I'll just start by saying that I think ranking the dessert is a way for it to be fun. And it's a way just to give people the experience of filling out a ballot where they say 1, 2, 3, 4. And people who, I think when you give somebody that experience, a tangible experience, it sinks into the brain in a different way than if you just explain it to them and talk at them. So that's the reason why we're having activities as big parts of these tactics. And then to your question about how does it help, I think I would point also just to the point around the way it affects the way lawmakers make decisions, knowing the way that primaries are differently structured, that they're an open primary and that it's a Final Five. But I'll let Bob or Danny or Grace also weigh in on what they view as benefits.
I do like, Bill, I like the way you described it with the desserts. I mean, that is walking people through the mechanism only. So Barb, it is not, nobody's claiming it's the same as knowing the desserts versus or the snacks versus knowing the candidates. You bring up a very valid point, people needing to know their candidates. But they need to walk through this mechanism in order to gain comfort with it. And that's the whole purpose of these exercises. We know that how it can make things better. We know that for extremists, their most powerful weapon is primarying someone, an incumbent, that is not extreme enough for them. So these incumbents, they're doing their jobs in fear of their party finding someone more extreme to run against them in the primary. But at the same time, these incumbents know if it wasn't just a 2-party primary with only their tiniest base running voting against them, if they were in front of their whole electorate, their whole district, I think they're confident that if they get to talk in the general election to their whole district, that they can make their case to a broader audience and that then they can win. That it's relieving the incumbents of the fear of always being beaten in a two-person race by someone more extreme than them.
Thanks, Bob.
I would
Want to make
also-
sure, oh, go ahead, Grace.
I would also like to offer that, and I totally appreciate what you're saying, Barb, truly. But one of the things we discovered with the gerrymandering campaign is that people are guaranteed re-election, and so they don't even bother talking to us. They don't even bother doing town halls. We don't need to learn who they are. They're just going to be waltzed right in. This might open the door to candidates having to try a bit harder, putting themselves in front of people, making sure people know who they are, going to the pancake breakfast, whatever you do when you campaign, but doing more of it so that they are more likely to get the top rankings. We'll hear from them more, I would hope.
Thanks,
Barb,
Grace.
how else would you describe your concern? Tell me more about the depth of your concern.
Bob, I have told this story to several people before, but a couple of years ago, there was a school board election in River Falls. There were 5 candidates running, and they could only put 4 on the ballot, so they had to have a primary for 5 to lower it to 4. And one of the people who was on of the 5 was the school board president, who you would think would have some name recognition because she had experience. Then there was a woman who had changed her last name multiple times, and had chosen the name of her last landlord as her last name because she liked him. She went to court and changed her name, and it happened to be a name that a lot of people in River Falls knew.
Right.
She got more votes in the primary than the school board president. And I went to her in fear that she was going to run and win.
Right.
People had not a clue who this woman was. They were picking a name, and they were voting without studying the ballot. And it's a big irritation for me, but I don't see how ranked choice voting is going to eliminate that. Now they don't
I love the way you say that, because that alone, ranked choice, that's not what ranked choice voting is intended to eliminate. Completely uninformed voters is a different problem. It exists today. It can exist in ranked choice voting. There are a different set of problems that ranked choice voting will take care of. But I agree with you. If in a given district for a given election, if people are completely uninformed, this doesn't change that.
And I think it's worth mentioning too, the bill that was most recently in this last session would be affecting congressional elections in the state of Wisconsin only. So it would affect your elections for House of Representatives and Senate to the United States Senate. So that might alleviate some of the fear of like it wouldn't be quite the same level of unknown candidates that you might get in a school board election or a municipal election. There's still absolutely people who would go into that polling booth and just pick a name out of the hat, basically. But and you can also choose one, vote for one person if you want, or two people. But yeah.
Really good discussion. I'm watching the time, and we have about 4 minutes left, and I want to respect y'all's time. So yeah, go ahead, Bob.
Bill, you know where these discussions can continue? At a house party.
Beautifully said, Bob. Well said. And these discussions need to happen. I just want to say that because this is part of the process for exploring a new way to elect leaders. There's a lot of things to talk about. And that's why creating these spaces and house parties or having conversations one-to-one at community events, this is how we transmit and make this change one conversation at a time. So just a few minutes left. I want to let you all know that we really would love to see you at the kickoff event, either in River Falls or in Menominee. So June 22nd, it's a Wednesday, Glen Park Pavilion in River Falls. Thursday, June 23rd at the Farmers Market Pavilion in Wilson Park in Menominee. I dropped 2 links in the chat for you to RSVP, and I encourage you to RSVP because then you get to participate in our primary election, where you choose your favorite snack. And then that will lead to the general election, which will happen actually at the kickoff events, where you get to rank your top 5 snacks. So please fill out one of those links to RSVP. I also want to just drop this sign up form for you. If you've been moved by our plan and you want to get involved, click on this link and just let us know that you're interested in joining our team, either just as a volunteer at the kickoff, or if you're interested in joining one of our tactics teams. Let us know, and Danny will follow up with you and have a conversation about where you feel like your talents can be best used. So register for kickoff. Let us know if you'd like to get involved as a team member. And then also just want to remind you, our next meeting is July 1st Thursday of the month. So that's July 7th, starts at 7 p.m. We'll continue this conversation then, and we really hope to see you all at a kickoff at a park in River Falls or Menominee before then. So it is 8:15, and I want to thank you all for spending time with us and for your passion and your energy. And we hope to see you on the campaign trail as we work towards ranked choice voting, getting it in Wisconsin.
Thank you, Bill.